Super GT cars are a very rare breed. There's not many of them out there. And certainly, they never, ever go racing. Unless you're Bentley with the Continental. Before we can get to the Continental, we have to understand the context that made it so. Primarily, how Bentley was owned by Rolls-Royce for decades, and, well, in the luxury car market, for comparison, Rolls-Royce treated it like a cheap cash cow. They were badge engineer Rolls-Royces that were slightly worse. And their sales told the whole story, less than 5% market share compared to other ultra high-end luxury cars. But then something changed. Volkswagen bought them out and threw $2 billion in 1998 money at them, and they started designing a new car because $2 billion gets you a lot of options. And they decided to base this new car off an unused Rolls-Royce era prototype, the Concept Java, while the name was taken from their highly exclusive Continental R, and then there was the power plant. VW had built a concept supercar called the W12. It was an all-wheel drive, streamlined Giugiaro-styled beauty with the world's first W12 engine. Essentially two VR6 engines bolted together at a 72-degree angle. The 12-cylinder, twin-turbocharged engine made 600 horsepower and allowed the W12 to average 200.7 miles an hour over 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Now, this car was primarily used to test the W12 engine and tinker with the reliability of the whole drivetrain, but it also, kind of, served as the template for the new Continental. It wouldn't be a supercar, it would be a GT car, which meant the engine would be up front and have a really nice cabin, but critically, it had that W12 twin-turbo monster. So while the interior is covered in dozens of dead cows, elegant wood, and trim pieces milled from single blocks of aluminum, it's a pretty quick car. It made 552 horsepower and 470 foot-pounds of torque, which allowed the 5,200-pound beast to hit 60 in 4.8 seconds. Yeah, it doesn't have the same luxury as a $500,000 hand-built Phantom, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot faster and it's a lot cheaper because it was the first Bentley ever built on an assembly line, which meant it cost half as much as the old Continental R, despite being a dramatic improvement. 150 grand is still expensive, but in the ultra-luxury car market, that is a bargain. Volkswagen spent a lot of time developing this car with a very stiff chassis, which meant that it could handle relatively nicely, given the vehicle, while still having that essential, super comfortable suspension. I mean, it even came as a convertible, the GTC, and as a sedan, the Flying Spur. The Continental, unironically, unequivocally, is the most important car Bentley has ever built. It single-handedly saved Bentley. In 2001, Bentley sold 1,000 cars a year. By 2006, it was over 9,200. Sales were so high that their shiny new factory couldn't keep up, and there was a year-long waiting list for the car. And things got even better a year later when the GT Speed came out. The Speed got the full 600 horsepower back from the W12 thanks to a reworked cooling system and a new air intake. And Bentley figured, correctly, that you would want to have really good brakes on a 600 horsepower, 2.5 ton land yacht, so they added carbon ceramics to the GT Speed. Then they lowered the ride height, gave it new anti-roll bars, and Pirelli Sport tires. But not to be outdone, in 2009, they unveiled the Super Sport. The W12 now made 621 horsepower and nearly 600 torque. There was active aero on the back, the gearbox was redone to decrease shifting time, and the all-wheel drive system got a new and more efficient differential, and the brakes were the largest carbon ceramics ever put on a car at the time, and 250 pounds was removed. All in all, the Supersport did 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds and reached 204 miles an hour, the fastest Bentley ever made. I mean, that performance actually rivals, at least in a straight line, obviously not in the corners, but it actually rivals their 2003 Le Mans winning LMP car. It's quick. It's a quick boy. And in the corners, while obviously not, speed 8 quality, it is a surprising adversary to most conventional sports cars. All that work meant it could corner at 1.29 G, compared to the speed's pathetic 0.98. I, personally, don't know why you would want your super luxury barge, which is essentially the cheaper version of the Rolls-Royce Wraith, to corner and accelerate that fast, but I am kind of glad that it exists, I'm not gonna lie. It's a very interesting vehicle that is also brutally fast. And with all this success, Bentley decided, well, you have to build a second generation in 2011 with a big change. There was an optional V8. I don't know why you'd want a V8 compared to the W12. Maybe it's because of 40% better MPG, but I mean, you're buying a $150,000 luxury car. I don't think the gas bill is going to affect you all that much. Now, to be honest, the second generation was pretty much a revamped first gen with the same 6-liter W12 and the same exterior styling, although the interior got even better and the weight was down by 50 more pounds. The speed got a revised 616 horsepower engine, but otherwise the second gen was a great, if not all that new, car. Which is probably why they did another refresh in 2015 to give it more aggressive styling, more chrome, more color options, and a fuel-efficient mode for the W12, which disables one of the engine banks to increase fuel economy. Oh, and they brought back the Supersports. Now it had this super aggressive front bumper, a rear wing, a functional diffuser, and really cool looking hood vents. It is a properly angry machine. And it could back up those looks. It had a new ZF 8-speed gearbox, even bigger carbon ceramic brakes, an all-wheel drive torque vectoring system from the racing program, and a new engine tune to make 700 horsepower and 750 foot-pounds of torque. This, again, 2.5-ton coupe could do the quarter mile in 11.5 seconds and go around a corner way better than a 2.5-ton coupe ever should. Of course, good luck trying to find one. Only 710 were built at $300,000 each, without personalization or upgrades. Yeah. Now, unlike the previous car I just discussed, the third gen was a major refresh. The new Porsche Panamera platform led to a whole new style, with one of the only times a larger grille didn't ruin the car. Take notes, BMW. Now, they achieved this by superforming the entire body, which had never been done before. By heating the bodywork and then forcing it into shape, Bentley got more sharp and precise body lines. I think it looks pretty great. Both the V8 and the W12 got mild power bumps, which meant that the car got a little faster while maintaining the required level of comfort Bentley owners expect. And it still has that level of customization they expect as well. It's not Rolls-Royce levels or anything, but having 17 billion possible combinations for a single vehicle is plenty. Now in 2021, the Speed came out and marked a sad moment. It was an impressive car, make no mistake, but from that point on, the normal Continentals would be V8 powered only. The Speed was the exception, still having that mighty 6-liter W12 making 650 horsepower, doing 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. I'm recording this before any news about a potential Supersport has even been announced, but if they do decide to make a Supersport, I can only imagine what that beast will do. But that's not where the Continental story ends. See, unlike other Super GT cars like the DB11 or the Portofino, Bentley decided to take their 5,000-pound coupe racing. The early Continentals were speedrunning cars designed to break the production car speed record on ice. And it did, twice, with a top speed of 205.67 miles an hour in a lightly modified Supersport GTC, as in it had some mild streamlining, freeze-resistant fuel, a roll cage, and snow tires. So, for all intents and purposes, a stock car reached over 200 miles an hour on ice. And that's not the last time it would see inclement terrain. The Top Gear trio have a long history of just abusing the hell out of the Continental GT. They all love it, but it certainly seems like they deeply, deeply hate it. James May and Chris Meek took one down a Rally GB special stage, Richard Hammond used it to off-road in Australia, and Jeremy Clarkson built a full off-road conversion kit for it to handle Madagascar. Like I said, they really hate that car, even though it has performed far above anybody's expectations and performed really well in all of their challenges. Bentley themselves have even taken it to the heavens by racing it up Pikes Peak. They even broke the production car record in 2019 with a 10:18.4, dethroning the mighty 911 Turbo S while doing it. And they plan to come back and take a Time Attack 1 class win in 2021 with a de-restricted 1,000 horsepower variant of their GT3 car. However, the error that year was the densest it had been in a century, and Bentley turned the turbos up too much. And when you tune the turbos to get more air in to counteract the less dense altitude, and then it turns out to be dense, it destroys the manifold. So Bentley ended up running the rest of the final sector without a turbocharger, and that relegated it to second place. Their normal GT3 program, though, is much more successful. They compete in the Blancpain? I don't know. I've seen it every time and I still can't pronounce it. GT Championship with M Sport. And M Sport are the guys that won the WRC in 2017 and 2018. So despite being in a big Bentley and a sea of R8s, McLarens, and Ferraris, Bentley won the 2017 championship and the 2020 Bathurst 12-hour endurance race. Sure, it's not the fastest GT car ever made, but in my mind, it's kinda like the Volvo 850R Estate. It's not the fastest, and while it is more successful than the Volvo, it's not exceptionally successful compared to the R8s and the Ferraris and the McLarens. But it still proved in 2017, in 2020, that it can put up a fight against cars that are way smaller than it and way more aerodynamic than it, and if things go just right, they can take it all.